Okay, ready, set, let's Tunisian crochet. Now the first thing I need to tell you folks is that yes, indeed, I am a lefty. But I don't want you to worry if you're a righty. All the processes are done the exact same way. In this video, you're going to see me holding my hook in my left hand and my working yarn in my right hand. If you're a righty, just switch. Hold your hook in your right hand and your yarn in your left hand. All the other techniques are done exactly the same way. With Tunisian crochet, as with any other type of crochet, you start with a chain. And to do that, you need to make a slip knot. Just bring your yarn around and come up through and make a loop. Leave yourself about an 8 to a 10-inch tail so that you can tuck it in nicely at the end of the project. Take your hook, slide it through the slip knot that you've made, and then take the two ends and bring them up snugly so that the loop is snug against your hook, not tight against the hook. Make sure that you can move this easily. If it's tight, it's going to cause you problems later on. That's something you want to try to remember with all kinds of knitting or crocheting techniques, is the looser you do it, the easier it's going to make it for you in the end. To start a chain, all we want to do is wrap our yarn around the hook, hold on to our loop here, and bring the yarn up and through that loop. Let's do that again. Wrap our yarn, bring it through the loop. We've now chained 2. For this project, I'm going to chain 10 for the example. However, you would make a chain for as many stitches as you want for the width or the length of your project. So here's 2. Let's try this again. Wrap our yarn, pull it through the loop, that's 3. Wrap and pull through, that's 4. Wrap and pull through, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And there we have our chain. You can see each individual stitch nice and loose, not tight, so they're easy to view. Tunisian crochet is actually a 2-row technique. So this first row is what I call our setup row. So what we want to do is we count the loop on our hook as loop number 1. Now we want to come across and make loops so that there are 10 in total. And how we do that is we put our hook through the loop, wrap our yarn, and pull up a loop. Put our finger at the end of the next stitch, put our hook through the stitch, wrap our yarn, pull up a loop. By putting your finger at the end of just the stitch you're working on, that helps you keep your place. So once again, we're going to put our hook through the stitch, wrap our yarn, and pull up a loop. And as you can see, we're keeping our loops here. These are our live stitches. So far we have 4, and we're going to work to the end of our chain, and for this piece we should have 10. So let's continue. Place the hook through the stitch, wrap the yarn, bring up a loop. 5, wrap, bring up a loop. 6, wrap, bring up a loop. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Sometimes that 10th loop or stitch can be a little hard to find because this is where your slip knot was at the beginning, and sometimes that can get a little tight. Just wiggle this around a little bit and your hook will go through. But remember, if you're doing this nice and loose, you're not going to have that problem. So now you can see we have 10 live stitches on our Tunisian crochet hook. We've done the setup row. Now we're going to do the second row, which helps to create the pattern. It's basically just what we did in reverse. Wrap our yarn, pull through 1 loop, wrap our yarn. Now we're going to pull through 2 loops, wrap our yarn, pull through 2 loops, wrap our yarn, pull through 2 loops, and we're going to continue that process all the way to the end until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Ready? Wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, all the way to the end of our row. Here we are at the end, and we have 1 loop left on our hook. So we're ready to start the setup row for the next part of the pattern. Now, as you can see here, you have a chain across here, and you have these vertical bars. And that's what you're wrapping and going through those 2 loops are doing. One of those loops is creating a vertical bar. One of those loops is creating the chain. And it's the vertical bars that are now going to be important to us for the rest of the Tunisian crochet. So what we want to do is a setup row again. Remember, the loop on your hook is always loop number 1. So you want to put your hook through the first vertical bar, wrap your yarn, and bring up a loop. Find your next vertical bar, put your hook through, wrap your yarn, bring up a loop. Just keep doing that. Find your vertical bar, wrap your yarn, bring up a loop. And for this piece again, we'll have 10 loops on our hook by the time we're done. There's our vertical, wrap, bring up a loop. All the way till we have 10. Now sometimes the very last vertical bar can be a little hard to find because it actually lives right here on the edge of the piece, but there it is. And as long as you remain loose in your crocheting, it'll be easier to find. If you started to do this nice and tight, I would recommend really that you just pull it out and start over at this point since you don't have much done, but you can always try and wiggle and you'll always see that vertical bar there. So here, once again, we have 10 loops on our crochet hook. And now we're going to do the second round, which sets up our stitch pattern. Wrap, go through 1. That sets up your vertical bar right there for your end. Wrap, go through 2, wrap, go through 2, wrap through 2, and we're going to continue all the way to the very end of our row. Whoops. And there we go. We're at the end of the row and we have 1 loop left. And so we're ready to go back again. Now something you may be noticing in Tunisian crochet is you never flip your piece over and work on the back side. You're always working on the front side, which makes it easy. But this is what the back side looks like. If you're a knitter, you might say, wow, that looks like knitting. Yes, it does look like knitting. It's very, very similar. So if you ever pick up your piece and you start working your loops or trying to find your loops and your piece looks like this, you're on the wrong side. Just flip it over because you always work on the front side. So let's do a 3rd row and a 4th row so we can just watch the pattern, how it forms. And then I'm going to show you a simple bind off. So here we have 1 loop on our hook. We're going to go through our first vertical bar, wrap our yarn, pull up a loop, go through the next vertical bar, wrap the yarn, pull up a loop, and we're going to continue across to the very end. And as you can see, as you get quicker and more confident with doing this pattern, you can really pick up some speed. But don't worry, take it nice and slow at the beginning. Make yourself feel confident, know what you're doing, and then the speed will come. Speed is never the thing that you want in the long term for any kind of project, in my opinion. It's just knowing and being comfortable with what you're doing. So here we go. We have 10 stitches again. Now we're going to do the 2nd row and crochet them off. Go through 1, go through 2, 3, we're all the way over to the end. Wrap and pull through, wrap and pull through 2, wrap and pull through 2, and now we're back to the end. And I'm going to do 1 more row and then I'm going to do a bind off, because as you can see, when we come back across and crochet those stitches off, we have some nice lovely holes here. Now this is perfect if you want to add in some crocheting or knitting on the end and use those spaces. But what you don't want to do is ever think you're doing Tunisian crochet, that you're doing a vertical bar and go through that hole instead. That will not set up your pattern. The other thing you want to look out for is you don't want to pick up both the front and the back loop of the vertical bar. You only want to pick up the front half of the vertical bar. But the bind off that I'm going to show you is quite simple. All we're going to basically do is the same stitch, adding a single crochet, and that's going to close it off and make it look less loopy, I guess you might say there, or less lacy right there. All right, here we go. 4th row. Insert into the vertical bar, bring up a loop. Next vertical bar, bring up a loop. Next vertical bar, bring up a loop. and we keep going all the way across until we get to the very end, which is our 10th loop. There's our 10th bar, and there we go. See? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I knew it was a good thing to learn how to count by twos when I was in grade school. Comes in very handy. Alright, so now we have 4 rows, and we're going to do the second row to come back off, just like we've been doing. Nothing new, nothing special, nothing to be worried about. Just crochet off 2 at a time. Oops, see what I did there? I accidentally went through the third one. I just backed that out so that I have 2, rewrap, and go through those last 2. And voila, there you have 4 rows of Tunisian crochet. Oops, let's get that out of the way. Now, we want to bind these off so that the stitches look completed. Same thing that we've done in the past. Put your hook through the first vertical bar, wrap your yarn, and pull up a hook, or a loop. Instead of going into the next one and doing the same thing, what you want to do now is wrap your yarn again and pull it through both. That's a single crochet in regular crochet terms, and that's what you want to do for each vertical bar. Go through the vertical bar, wrap your yarn, bring up a loop, wrap, and go through both loops in a single crochet. Through the vertical bar, wrap the yarn, bring up a loop, go through both loops into a single crochet. And you just want to keep doing that until you've come all the way across the piece. And don't worry, say you're doing that and you forgot and you go and you pick up a third stitch like that. Easy enough with this process, just pull that one off and yank it off. The nice thing about Tunisian crochet is even if you have to back off stitches, you're never left with a bunch of live stitches waving out in the breeze like you are with knitting. So it's not difficult. So I took that one off, I'll wrap my yarn, do my single crochet. Here comes number 9. And finally, here's my 10th vertical bar. I bring up my stitch, whoops, there we go, and come through, and voila, we're done. And see how it's nice and closed off like it is at the beginning where we did the setup? So now it's easy. Just pull up a loop a little bit there, take out your hook, grab your scissors, give yourself a 6 to 10 inch tail, make your cut, bring your yarn through the loop, and gently pull it closed. Don't pull it so hard that you have this actual knot there. Just pull it closed nice and gently so it looks like the other stitches across that edge. Gives you a much nicer edge, and it's much easier then to see that stitch if you're going to add on some more crocheting or some more knitting to this piece. And that's kind of what I've done. Again, I'll show you this piece that we talked about earlier. It's kind of what I've done here. I've done 2 rows of Tunisian crochet, then I switch over to my knitting needles and I do this knitting piece. So I always need to make sure that I can see these stitches. And so you want to make sure things stay nice and loose, nice and even, and it gives you a nice pattern and a nice texture. So that's it for general Tunisian crochet. It's very simple. There's really nothing difficult about it. The nice thing about this video is if you have any problems, you can always stop it and rewind it. We love that rewind button. Along with this video on our website, you will have seen a set of written instructions that you can print out for your home library. And again, if you want to share this with your friends, you can send them to OzDustDesigns website, which is at www.ozdustdesigns.com. Under the tutorial section, they'll find the Tunisian crochet tutorial and the written instructions there. I personally like to keep my written instructions with me on the side after I've viewed a video because I can never quite remember everything all at once. So that's it. I hope you had fun. I hope you loved learning this new technique. It's really quite easy. If you have any questions, please contact me at the website. I'll be happy to answer those questions. This tutorial and its written instructions will stay up on our website, so you can use it at any time that's convenient for you. I hope you had a great time. Peace and joy to you all. Bye now.